Hey guys, it's Q&A Tuesday, and I got a few really good ones for you this week. Stay tuned after the intro. Couple of things first. Thank you for emailing me your questions. But you guys email me your questions, this show keeps on going, and thanks to you guys, I still have a backlog of questions.
So many questions.
If I don't get to your questions sooner than later, my apologies, I can only answer so many. But eventually, at least I try to get to those to which I have replied and said, hey, I will try to air this. A reminder, Roman Sharf at Luxury Bazaar is where you want to send in your questions. And before I forget, wrist check. Last What's on My Desk, I showed you guys the Grand Comp from AP. And I've been wearing this thing for a few days. Quite the workout. It's a humongous watch, but I told you guys before, I know it's big on me, but I don't care. I love this watch. Love AP, obviously, you guys already know that. So that's what's on my wrist. Let's move on to some questions from Arjun. Arjun writes, hey Roman, hope you and your team are doing well. I recently came across one of your Q&A Tuesday bids where someone asked if they should wear a fake Rolex daily and have a real one for special occasions. And the answer was no, if you remember. So I wanted to ask you if there's any point at which a watch could not be saved after being mangled for a certain amount of money, so that you could educate us on what the cost would be to have a really badly scratched and daily worn watch for, let's say, 10 plus years restored back to normal. Keep on the Rolex brand. Why not take the example of a Datejust or a Submariner? Sorry for the long question. That's actually not a long question. A lot of the questions I get are yay long, Arjun. So the answer is actually blowing in the wind. Somewhat simple. And again, I'm going to take an average wearer because there's some people out there that beat the crap out of their watches. There's some people out there from whom I've taken a watch and trade I've had for 10 years, and this thing is like, it's worn, but it's not nowhere near beat the crap. If we're talking about, let's take a Rolex Datejust, a common Rolex Datejust. One of the most common Rolexes out there, 10 years plus, probably be a two-tone 36mm Datejust and a Jubilee bracelet. One of the things that happens first with that watch is you get band stretch, right? Some of the newer Rolexes, that band stretch, well, I guess time will show, but some of the newer Rolexes and bracelets are supposed to be much better, and they shouldn't have that rainbow stretch, right? But nevertheless, going back 10 plus years, usually this is what you end up with. Told you guys before. I was at the guy's store in Aventura, if you remember. You can link that up, I'm sure, where I went to see a guy, and I asked him, hey, what would it cost to tighten up that bracelet? And his answer was a couple of $100, right? So there's fix number one. As far as polishing, there isn't anything that in today's days and age in technology, there isn't anything that a proper polisher or a proper watchmaker cannot do with the watch, no matter how bad you beat it up. Example, if it's really, really scratched up, scratches can all be buffed out, taken out, polished up, if it's, again, done properly. If there are dings in the watch, right, or even gouges, like deeper gouges in certain parts of the watch, that still can be done and done properly by filling the metal back in, usually using a laser. So let's say you have a ding on your bezel, right, this AP, right, oftentimes because of the sharp edges of the AP, you know, you walk into something, boom, 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 there's a big ding in the bezel. All of a sudden, wait a minute, I can't polish that off because I have to probably polish half the damn watch off. No, what you do is you fill this in with appropriate material. In this case, this is a white gold royal oak, so it gets filled in with white gold and gets polished over, and the original size of the part that may have been dinged stays the same. Water damage and dial damage and things of that nature, even that can be fixed by replacing the dial. Oftentimes, dials also can be washed, believe it or not. Sometimes it's cheaper to do that as well, but you can always find a replacement dial, a pre-owned replacement dial that will look better than yours. Damaged hands or hour markers or something like that, again, all replaceable parts. The question is, how much money do you want to put into that watch? Sometimes watches get mangled to an extent where it's just, they're not salvageable. Fire damage. Extensive water damage. By extensive water damage, I mean something, if you dropped your Rolex into your aquarium and it's sat there for 10 years, odds are it's not feasible to fix it, or at least it's not worth the money to fix the watch.
It's totaled. It's completely totaled, Peter.
But for the most part, there isn't anything that you can do to a watch that's not fixable. Again, the key word is done by a proper individual and done efficiently in terms of monies, right? Meaning that, look, if you're sitting on a $3,000 Datejust, right, and your dial's got some blemishes on it, there's a stretch on a bracelet, it doesn't pay to go out there buy a brand new bracelet and replace it in a brand new dial and everything else. You're better off having that bracelet fixed for a couple of $100, having a nice polish done, and maybe perhaps having the dial cleaned Because if you start getting into replacing all these parts, the bracelet, the dial, the hands, the pushers, blah, 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 you may get up to a number where it's just almost not worth it. You can buy the same day just in better shape and sell this one for less money, which is, by the way, another option, right? If you have a watch that's really, really beat up, right, rather than putting all that money into it, go find one that's in much better condition or was taken care of much, much better, trade that one in and take the other one. Sometimes you may win out that way. Hope that answers your questions a little bit. Here's a quick one. Chris from Belfast writes, "Hey Roman, I was wondering if there are peak times, months of the year for watch sales. Equally, are there any relatively slow ones? You know what? I've been doing this for 18 years, and there's never rhyme or reason. You would think during Christmas times there's a bit of a rush, yes, in some of the lower, cheaper end watches, let's say $1,000 and under or $500 and under. For the high-end watches, there's no rhyme or reason. Oftentimes people say, oh, it's slow in summertime. Well, I remember last year, August, which is probably the slowest month of the year for pretty much any business out there, I had one of the best Augusts ever. First, I guess you would have to define what is a slow and not slow month. Are you defining an amount of watches you sold, numbers of watches you sold, or amounts of money? Because you can have a month where you sell a couple of these puppies, and all of a sudden you're having a great month because you just sold $1 million worth of watches between two watches, right? Or you can sell 1,000 lower end watches, but the profit wasn't really as much as on the other stuff because they were very cheap. So it really is all how you define it. But to answer your question short and sweet, there is no rhyme or reason in watch sales. I can sometimes look at stuff months over months, and it makes no sense year over year, and I have plenty of data to go back on. So now, at the end of the day, it all averages out, obviously, but there's really no rhyme or reason. I can have a great August one year and a shitty August the next, and that's just how it goes. Here's a reach out for help rather than a question, but Carl writes, Roman, I've seen your YouTube and Instagram talking about watches, and I'm messaging you because I need your expertise to purchase my very first watch. I'm looking for a good starter, quote unquote, watch between $2,000 and $3,000, but I also want to invest my money in this starter watch, which means that it should not drop in value for the next years. I really do not know what brands to look for and what brands are realistic. I like the design of Rolex, but I also find these watches over budget. I like both new watches and vintage watches, by the way. What do you think, and what would you suggest me to do? Hope you can help me, Carl. If I had a nickel for every time somebody asked me this question, as the old saying goes. Well, first and foremost, something that will hold its value. I will answer that across the board. I don't care what you're out there buying. These things are not an investment. They're expensive toys. I told you this, guys, numerous times. Don't have a glass ball. Anything can happen in the future, right? Just because 5711 todays are $70,000 doesn't mean they won't be $30,000. Tomorrow, you don't know what's going to happen in the world. Remember, we're talking about expensive toys, not investment. And as far as me helping you pick a watch, or any dealer out there for that matter, the easiest thing for me to do, any other dealer out there, is for somebody that says, hey, I got a budget of $2,000 to $3,000, I want to get a decent watch. Sure, great, no problem. I go down into my vault, I pick 10, 15 pieces that I have in stock that fit that criteria, say, here, you should buy these. That's the easiest thing to do, but that's not what we do. That's not what I teach my salespeople to do, and that isn't something I've ever done. And the reason for that is because I said it in my email to him. I would be biased, and my bias is that I want to sell you something, and I want to sell you something that I have, not something I have to go out and source, right? So that's why my response is always this, to say, look, send me some information. I can always tell you what not to buy. It's a lot easier for me to say, hey, you know what? I know that's a dog. It's very easy to look back, but not look forward. Like, sure, I'll go out and order this watch for you for 10 grand, but just keep in mind when you bring it back to me, I'm only going to pay you 2. Right? Because I happen to know the market of some of these things. And even still, I say buy if you like it, right? Because it doesn't matter. But long story short, I always say the same thing. Send me a list of what you like, because the idea is to buy what you like first and foremost, and don't worry about the value. And again, numerous times I've talked about this. This is just a good live example. Once I get a list of, let's say, 10 watches that you like, then myself, my sales team, we can figure out, hey, I can see where this guy is leaning in terms of taste. I can then take those 10 watches and knock off 3 or 4 of them, because odds are they're going to be dogs. And I'm going to say, no, you don't want these for that reason. You should pick between these 2. And now that I know what you like, take a look at this selection and see what you think. And that's the best way to narrow down a watch. This is why I sort of wanted to bring this up. Carl, I hope you're watching this, and so there's be an extra answer for you on top of the email that I already answered. There's one from Ray. Hey, Roman, love your videos, especially the Q&As. What do you think of Rolex quality control of late? I owned a Rolex OP39 personally, and I just came across a YouTube video, link below, where the Rolex OP41 minute hand has a dent, among other imperfections. They are, however, only detected with a macro lens. As you've been in the watch business for a while, do you see a degrade in Rolex quality over time? Well, let's see this video.
Upon change of camera angle and lighting, there are repeat marks or scratches, as if someone scribbled these marks on the surface. This to me is easily a sign of either carelessness, lack of quality control, or even lack of skill of watchmaker to do the job.
Okay, so I see, I mean, wow, that's a serious macro lens. I mean, those scratches are obviously super tiny. So as far as me seeing the quality of Rolexes degrade over time or any other watches, the answer is going to be no. And I base that, again, on real experience, on amount of watches that I have received, both new or used. Remember, we QA all watches, whether they're new or used, because anything can happen in transport and transit. So we do take a loop to all of our watches.
Give it a loop! Give it a loop!
What I see in that video, those sort of across scratches on the hand, shows me that the hands were handled improperly. The fact they're put in, and I'm really, really surprised that that was not noticed. I personally think what may have happened with that particular watch is that watch was maybe bought and resold, and maybe the dials were swapped at some point post Rolex factory. Not for a fact, because in order to swap a dial, you got to take the hands off. So maybe somebody who was doing that particular procedure didn't do it so carefully, and you saw that in the hand. Again, just a theory, not saying that that's what happened. If that watch came out of Rolex in that condition, I am very, very surprised. This isn't something that I have seen on brand new watches, at least not ones that were opened and something was done with them, whatever it may have been. The quality of watch to me is obviously judged on the finishes themselves. A watch should not come out with a scratch on a hand, such as you saw in this video, so that's certainly unacceptable.
This is in unacceptable condition! Unacceptable!
And if whoever that gentleman is, if that watch came to him directly from Rolex, I would certainly bring it up to Rolex and say, hey guys, what the hell, right? And odds are they'll probably replace the watch for him. But I haven't seen Rolexes degrade over time. I get nothing but praises from Rolex. But most of those praises are actually on the durability of the watch, right? And durability and quality sort of go hand in hand, right? I always said you can throw a Rolex against the wall and it keeps on ticking, right? But things like that, I would not expect something like that. If a watch came to me like this from a dealer or private individual and I looped it and I saw that on the hands, I would probably take that watch, put it right back in the box and send it back to them and ask either for a replacement or a refund. But overall, I based quality of watches on the feedback I get from the clients, and more so, hey, how many of those watches actually come back to me, right? In how short amount of a time, right? How many brand new watches have I gotten sent to a client and said, hey, wait a minute, what the hell is going on inside that dial? And this is the first time I'm seeing something like that. I've never had a complaint like that. And furthermore, because we service our watches and we warranty our watches, I don't remember the last time a Rolex came back to me not working within a 2 to 3 year time frame. I've had guys go swimming with the crowns open, bring the watch back. I've had guys banging up the watches and something went wrong because they hit it too hard. But never something like this. And I appreciate you bringing this to my attention. That's really, really cool. But to answer your questions, I don't see Rolex degrading in quality overall. Yes, there are outliers everywhere, but overall, I don't think they are degrading in quality. Hope that answers your question. Here's an email from Akbar that says, hey Roman, hope you're well. Love your channel. I can't wait for new videos. My question for today is that my Grail watch is the Patek 5981R, but does it make sense to buy it? Someday, inshallah. God willing, I believe that means. The retail price is 90K or so, and it sells for 160 plus. During the Corona lockdown, I was offered it at 135, but didn't have liquidity because we were all stuck. I know you always say watches aren't an investment, but I've always bought smart and try never to lose if I don't make anything when I resell. Would this be worth saving up and spending all this money when I'm paying so much premium? So it take a big dip, which means it could do at any time. Still, is it smart to sell all watches and buy that one Grail watch? I always try to ask some high profile friends to get their name on a list for me. What's the best way to get my name on a waiting list? Your thoughts on paying the premium or trying to make the list somehow? How would you justify this purchase? If I had millions of extra dollars, I wouldn't think twice, but I am someone who would work hard towards this price, which would be my max limit. As far as advice on getting on a list, I'm the wrong and the right person to ask. I don't know any tips and tricks on how to get on the list with ADs. I don't do it. I've never done it. I have a relationship with ADs, but I'm not the guy that goes out there and tries to get on the list to get premium pieces, right? From what I understand, the only way you do end up getting these premium pieces if you are a true Patek connoisseur out there shopping with this AD, whether it's a hot piece or not a hot piece, and have years in history, right? So if you're somebody that's out there that's bought the Calatrava, some of the more complicated things and things of that nature, only then are you convincing enough to your authorized dealer to say, hey, this is a good client, he's not flipping these watches, all these watches are still in his collection, so I'm gonna go ahead and sell him that.
You're gonna like this guy, he's all right. He's a good fella, he's one of us.
So that's the only thing I can tell you in that regard. As far as them dipping down to 135, remember when Corona happened, that people panicked, myself included a little bit. I quickly understood that Corona isn't going to affect the watch market. In fact, it did quite the opposite. It went even higher. And I said it on record, even though I caught a lot of heat. But again, I told you so, guys. But that initial dip, not just in the 5980, but also in some of the other hot pieces that are out there for a tremendous amount of money, was caused by people panicking. Dealers selling off some of their inventory quickly. Because if I'm a dealer and a major world event or crisis just happened, such as the coronavirus, and I'm sitting on all these hype pieces that are selling damn near double their list value, I'm going to try to dump off of some of them, try to hedge my risk in case these things do take a dump. Because the hardest things to sell when market goes down is the hottest stuff, because the hottest stuff is the most expensive. Like your Steel 5711, like most of the richer meals, like a lot of these Royal Oaks that have gotten up there priced like crazy, right? So what happens when there's a short time panic? Dealers start to sell off, and when dealers start to sell off, and they sell off among each other, not to retail clients, because retail clients aren't buying, prices tend to go down, and that was the cause of that particular dip. Once everything cleared and dealers said, oh, well, there's no need to panic, most of them paid more than $135 for that watch at the time they had that watch. You don't see a lot of dealers out there that have a watch which they pay $100 for it and held it up until it's worth $185. Believe me, most of them sold it at $120 or $110 or $115, right? And then you buy one for $135 and sell it for $145, then $145, $155, and so on and so forth as the market goes up. At the end of the day, we end up making the same margin from the time a watch goes from $100,000 to $200,000, and towards the top we actually make less, right? Because that's when it's most popular. To say what a fair market value on that watch is, it's what the market price is today. And today that market price is back towards that almost double retail value, right? You've answered your own question. When you said, hey, do I sell all my watches and buy that one Grail watch? Well, how does this watch going to make you feel versus the rest of your collection? If you have 5, 6 other pieces in your collection that you're going to get rid of to get that one watch, are you going to be happy? That's the only question you need to ask yourself, and that's not something I can answer. One other thing I'm going to mention here is you mentioned, hey, maybe I can ask one of my high-profile friends to do this for me. Well, it's also not very fair. If you have a high-profile friend that happens to have a relationship with an AD where he can get this watch at retail, you would be sort of jeopardizing his relationship, right? Because if this guy goes out and buys it and then sells it to you at list, and then it just so happened that he's somewhere with this AD, say, hey, where's your 5980? And he says, oh, I gave it to a friend, that may ruin his relationship. And on top of that, if you got somebody out there that has the ability to walk into an AD and buy a watch for $100,000 that sells for $200,000, you essentially asking him, hey, can you give me a $100,000 gift? And you see I hope you see where I'm going with this. So that's also really not a good option. But I hope I did shed some light into this. If what you want is that 5980 and you want to get rid of whatever watches you have in order to get there, then you get out there and do just that, because that's what's going to make you happy. And at the end of the day, buy what you like and be happy. Hope that helps. Next question is from Paula. Hey, Roman, Merry Christmas, although you might celebrate it on the 7th. To you and your team. What he's referring to is that Christmas in Russia is on January 7th, and it's still till this day the same way. Something to do with old calendars versus new calendars. They never switched over. Maybe some communist thing, I have no idea. But my AD in Lisbon got me a pink OP 36mm for my wife, and these seem to be hard to get. Still waiting on my sub, and been told by my AD that it will come. I was wondering how many of these sports watches actually sell to customers at double or triple retail. Or on most forums and groups, 99% of the people say they won't pay these prices, so who actually buys them? Are dealers simply trading these between themselves and creating a false market value? Many online sales seem to be from private people that list them at higher prices, but those ads seem to stay on for months. I know Agent has sold many Rolex recently, but are you getting the 20K for Starbucks or Batman? Not quite 20K, but the answer is yes. Watch the Watches and Whiskey I did with Eric Bonetta. We talk about this there in some detail. Probably the biggest wholesaler of Rolex that I know. So one of the parts there is the B2B business. The B2B business has gotten humongous. You got guys out there selling courses on how to make money flipping watches, get rich quick type of things, and so on and so forth. And guys out there on Instagram showing off their Ferraris, say, hey, I flip 10 watches a month and I'm driving a Ferrari, all right? Some of the stuff is smoke and mirrors, but there's guys out there. A lot of guys have gotten into this business lately as those flippers to make a quick dollar, and that will stop once the market shifts a little bit. It happens all the time in any industry, in any market. You know how many art dealers were around in 2006 when the art market was super, super hot? All of a sudden, everybody became an art dealer, right? Most of those guys got hurt at the end because they didn't know what they were doing, right? But I know a guy that put in $2 million into art that was supposedly worth $2 million, and at the end of the day, he found himself with a bunch of paintings that are worth maybe 20 grand and are impossible to sell, even closer to the prices that he paid for them or traded watches for them, et cetera, et cetera. But that's another story altogether. But yes, some of the contribution is the B2B business, the dealers trading amongst each other. It does drive the price up a little bit, right? But a lot of it is still the fact that people are out there willing to pay those prices. They are willing to pay $18,000 to $20,000 for a new Starbucks because they don't want to wait for 3 years if they may get that from the AD or not. And the big if is due to the fact that becomes a catch-22 situation. One of the reasons you guys aren't getting these from your ADs is because they're able to sell it to us at another 30 to 40% margin and therefore maximizing on their profits, right? That's another thing that causes that delay. Yes, plenty of dealers out there do sell to the end consumers, to their special clients and so on and so forth, but some or most, I would say, would prefer to sell to a guy like me, and as long as we're out there paying it, then yes, you can call us the culprit because we're paying those high prices to these dealers, right? A lot of these dealers, go to Hong Kong or Asia or anywhere else, these authorized dealers, they're flat out put those things in their showcase and they're selling them at current market value, disregarding the MSRP from Rolex. And again, rightfully so, because along with that, and I've told you guys numerous times, they get a ton of 26mm ladies Datejust or some two-tone stuff that doesn't sell, or some heavy-duty platinum diamond stuff that they could never sell, like ladies Pearl Masters or even men's Pearl Masters that are not the easiest thing to sell. So again, they have to kind of average it all out. They don't look at it on a piece-by-piece basis. So within your questions, you're kind of right on both counts. Yes, dealers do contribute to this hype and do contribute to these inflated pricing, and because we do trade them from dealer to dealer, but at the same token, there are customers out there that are paying this price. At the end of the day, these dealers want to sell them to a retail client. And once the market sort of stops, right? Because look, you're not going to have a Kermit selling for $30,000. They pretty much topped off to where they are right now, and I think it's like 18, 19,000 right now. They're not really going to go any further. So what you're going to see is that B2B is going to stop, right? And eventually these things are going to get sold off to retail clients. And as long as there's enough demand, which there is, that price is going to stay up. And the minute that there's not, that price is going to go down. So I hope that answers your question, Paulo. I'm going to finish this off with a good one from Jeffrey. And Jeffrey writes, Roman, happy holidays. Thank you for continuing to make videos that help us watch enthusiasts learn more about our passion. Your sincere and honest approach is refreshing and must be supported and encouraged by more people. Thank you. Subscribe to my channel. If you're not subscribed, support. A couple of questions. One, how important are boxing papers? I've watched your videos in the past where you mentioned that these are important. However, from time to time, I also see some watches you sell don't have papers. I'm not worried about the authenticity since I trust your site, but curious how much value the watch loses potentially if we try to resell in the future. Depends. Thank you very much. Good night. That's not really the answer, but it does depend. It depends on the watches themselves. There's a lot of variables here, and that is brands, particular watches, collectability, vintage versus new. Let's talk about vintage versus new, right? So with vintage watches, papers do add value. And when you're talking about watches that are 50, 60, 70 years old, it's really the appeal to the collector to say, have a watch with original box and papers. A client of mine wanted a Rolex 6263, $50,000 to $60,000 watch. Papers make about a $10,000 difference in that watch. And mind you, I just said paper, certificate of authenticity. All the other booklets and everything else can be bought separately because they were generic. Now take a more modern Daytona, right? And the difference between, let's say, a new ceramic Daytona, which somebody lost a card to, versus one that does have a card, again, pre-owned, is only going to be about $1,000. Why is that? Because this watch is really, really brand new. But at the end of the day, it's really on the consumer. It's the consumer's perceptions, whether or not they want to have all the packaging in the box, the papers, et cetera, that was instilled in them by authorized dealers going back when the internet was starting. Because the whole thing to combat the internet was like, well, buy from an authorized dealer with all the proper paperwork so you have all the proper stuff and warranties and this, that, and the other. Well, guess what? At the end of the day, no matter what watch you buy from me, whether it has papers, whether it doesn't have papers, whether it's new or used, something goes wrong with the watch, I take care of it anyway. Right? So that slowly disappeared, but that it's still imprinted in the back of people's brain that watch must have papers, number one, to be authentic. The very first war on dealers like me from authorized dealers and the companies was, hey, you're going to get a brick in the box, you're going to get a watch that's bad, you're going to get a watch that's fake, and blah, 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 blah. Make sure you have all the certificates of authenticity, which you can only get from us or an authorized dealer, and so on and so forth. That slowly disappeared, but again, kind of was left imprinted in the back of your head. The first question you should ask yourself is that what are those boxing papers worth to you? And depending on watches, depending on how collectible the watches are, depending on how hot the particular watches is, boxing papers can make a various difference. But on an average, it will be anywhere from 5 to 10% of the value of the watch. So if you're buying a watch for $10,000, With box and papers, the one without box and papers, expect to pay $900 to $9,500. That's just a general rule of thumb. When it, again, comes to some of the hotter stuff, some of the stuff that's super real and that's super rare, and that's especially when it comes to vintage Rolexes, vintage Pateks, and things of that nature, just papers can make a hell of a difference. Not because it has papers, but because of the amount of watches out there that don't have papers, original papers on watches that may be 80 years old versus the ones that do. It just makes the entire watch that much rarer, right? But there's also a catch-22. Oftentimes people chase box and papers on these vintage watches and they end up passing on an example of a watch which condition is so much better than that one that has paper that they put their blinders or they buy the watch with papers that's in 10 times worse condition, and they were better off buying the one without papers because a lot of the time the value in the watch is also on its condition, again, when it comes to vintage stuff. And last but not least, super expensive watches, right? On super expensive watches, if you're spending $250,000 today on a Rainbow Daytona, you probably want to get that with papers because, again, now you're really spending money on an expensive watch that you would deem to be somewhat of an investment, a very collectible watch, which is why it fetches so much. So that's something you may want to put papers with. You also have certain companies that have services. You can get archive papers from Audemars Piguet by going right onto their website or walking right into the boutique for, I think, $60 or $70. There's your certificate of authenticity. You can do the same thing with Patek. You can order archives from Patek, and there are other companies out there that provide that kind of service. Some do, some don't. But don't think just because you're able to do that, all of a sudden you have a watch with papers. Still, certain people will say, hey, archives versus regular papers, there's a difference in price. And that also can be anywhere from 5 to 10%, again, depending on the watch. Hope this sheds a little bit of light. And you had one more question. It says, last February you gave me a good advice and I bought the Vacheron Chrono in blue dial. I see prices holding up and not as soft as other VCs. I have an opportunity to buy a boutique exclusive A-Lang piece chrono reference 414026 in white dial, and I'm wondering what you think of it and should I get it? So you're talking about a white gold Datograph looks like. Do I think you should get it? Yes, but not from the boutique because that's a watch you can find at a discount. It's also a watch I would urge to find pre-owned to get rid of the hit up front. It's not one of those watches that's going to go through the roof. So the reference you gave me refers to an 1850 with that Argente dial. I think this is limited edition, 2015 or 2016. It's kind of weird the boutique still has that watch. Maybe they couldn't sell it, and that should tell you something. I don't know off the top of my head if that watch is, if I can get out there and get this watch at a discount. I probably could. Could probably even find this watch pre-owned and save you a little bit of money. I think the retail on this thing is like $60-some thousand, so it's a pretty expensive chronograph. So to answer your question, let's go backwards. If you brought this watch to me today and you try to sell it back to me or trade it in, I would not pay you retail for it. I would probably offer much less. So if this is a watch you really, really like, perhaps you should make an effort to try and find this watch out there pre-owned, see what's out in the market. And if you don't find anything pre-owned and you really, really love this watch and you really, really want it, then pay full retail, put it on your wrist, wear it, enjoy it. And remember, as I always say, these things are not investments, they are an expensive toy. And I will end this Q&As with Jeffrey's questions. Hope you guys enjoyed them. As always, remember, Roman Sharf at Luxury Bazaar for new questions to keep this show going. Thank you once again for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next Tuesday.